Hello, this is Cotton Soups, and welcome back to another Loomian Legacy video. And actually, this video is mostly on a tier list video just because I am working on some stuff right now and I mostly need a video to get it out. So yeah, this Loomian Legacy tier list is on the Atlantean City Part 1, right after the Sweet Retreat, and this video is being filmed before the new Loomian coming out tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. I'm not pretty sure, well, no, I'm sure that the new Loomian won't cause some big meta shifts because usually that doesn't really happen with new solo Loomians. So yeah, today's video is all about the tier list, and yeah, I guess I should explain the tiers first. So B plus is going to be filled with a bunch of Loomians, and that's just how it is. B plus is viable and great. I don't necessarily mean great as in better than the A tiers and the S tiers. It's viable and great, and in my opinion, most of the Loomians are going to be in B plus, A minus. I'm going to be a bit more harsh to these Loomians because a lot of these Loomians have have a bunch of problems. Well, not a bunch. They do have problems, and yeah, the S tier is going to be a little bit more small than last time, as well as the A plus tier, and the A tier is going to be way smaller than last time. So yeah, and the B minus, C pluses, C tiers, they're not going to be as great as, you know, these guys as well. And I would say that B tier is the minimum tier you should use Loomians from. If you're using Loomians down here, they are either very outclassed or they're just so bad you should not use them on a team, and they bring down whatever team they're put into. And of course, the masochist tier, yeah, if you use this, you have some problems. Okay, so I feel like I should explain the Ubers a bit, but I'll do that at the end because everyone knows why they're Ubers. So I think I'm gonna start off with some solid placements of Tyrex in the Tyrex in the A tier, Barblast and Eclipse in the S tier. Now, Tyrex offers a bunch of utility with its typing, being able to be resisting air, metal, bug, and an earth type being able to be neutral to ice is pretty great. Not to mention that Tyrex is one of the only metal types that does not fear electric types and actually threatens them out, which is pretty great. That means it can wall stuff like Zulong and Joltooth, which are pretty scary Loomians in this metagame. So yeah, Tyrex overall A+. I feel like there are a lot of more reasons that I'm missing. So yeah, you can leave them in the comment section. Barblast is pretty easy to put in the S tier. I can see the argument of A+ tier. So yeah, Barblast is pretty great because it's a toxic type. It gets rid of poison barbs. It's really bulky and it walls a bunch of the metagame's biggest threats. Stuff like, well, not wall to the maximum, but you know, it walls stuff like C.B.O, Syrianite. Yeah, it walls these guys. These guys are really threatening in the metagame, and while I do see the argument of my types being a lot more common now, I mean stuff like Cosmere Cracked is rising up, Shachi, Metatoad, and Ferroglyph. I guess there is the argument of putting Barblast in A+, so yeah, I think on A+, I'll put it at the minimum. Syrianite, it's honestly a solid to an A+ tier. Syrianite is like the definition of a great Loomian, being able to have good bulk on top of the awakening boosted stab moves, which are pretty strong. Syrianite's base melee attack is really great as well. Has a decent speed tier, well, not the best, it's decent, but its main use is in its really great utility of barbs and slapdown, as well as being able to have Raging Flame. Although there is some weaknesses of Syrianite that you're most likely, if you want to get a lot out of Syrianite, you want to be pairing it up with more defensive Loomians, or like defensive oriented Loomians, stuff with more bulk to cover its weaknesses. So yeah, I do think it's an A+ tier Loomian. It might be an A tier, I do not know yet. Some great Loomians like Totab, Zeppelin. Oh yeah, I guess it should be ordered, so yeah, Syrianite, you're down there. Totab, Zeppelin, Wintrix, and Meditoad are all great Loomians that are really good for offensive capabilities, stuff like that. Meditoad, I'm not sure, I might put it down in A-, just because Meditoad hits a lot of these stuff super effectively, like the walls, stuff like Stratosaur doesn't want to switch in, Obsidian doesn't want to switch in, Sedimars might be able to switch in a little bit, but not a ton. Tundrolin doesn't want to switch in, neither does Harvesect. Yeah, it's just really strong. Also, Syrianite, Tyrex. I think Tyrex, unless it's running Mega Punch, Tyrex doesn't want to switch in, and Barblast as well doesn't want to switch in. So, Meditoad is really strong in that department. Its coverage is really great for the metagame. However, its defensive typing, not the best for the metagame, because most of the stuff I just said can hit it back super effectively. So, while I do think Meditoad is pretty great in coverage, I do not think it's in the choice where you should put it in the solid tier. It definitely is a good Loomian once it switches in, because it doesn't need any setup and it can just hit whatever. So I think it's the definition of A-, it's good, but it has some issues. So yeah. Kinibo is one of those other good wall breakers that have its issues. I mean, Kinibo's biggest issue is that Clobber is a recoil move, so it has to struggle with that, as well as Kinibo being able to, well, it does do well against a lot of the walls, especially stuff like Tyrex. It is put to a stop to stuff like Barblast and Obsidian. It might have to try and run Ice Hammer for the potential Harvesect switch in. So Kinibo, it has some issues. It's great, but it has issues, so it's A- for me. I think another Loomian that fits this bill very well is Valkyrie and Gabademic. Gabademic is more or less of a Loomian that can only be ran in one playstyle, and that playstyle is Hyper Offense. Gabademic is most likely a bad option on almost anything else, because Gabademic only provides barbs and a suicide lead. Other than that, Gabademic is not very well used on other teams. Valkyrie, like Kinibo and Meditoad, I do think it has its issues, but once you overcome them, Valkyrie is a great Loomian to use, just like Meditoad and Kinibo. I do think it's worse than these two wall breakers, but it definitely is good, because once Valkyrie sets up, you either take a big load of damage or use something dies. That's just the role with Valkyrie right now. It's a lot worse than it was before. It used to be A-, now it's an A-. No, it used to be A+, now it's an A-. But other than that, I think Valkyrie's A-. I can see the argument of B+, but yeah. I think another Loomian that's pretty great is Sedimars. I'm debating on putting it in the A tier because of how much it does. So yeah, Sedimars is pretty great because other than the other walls, Sedimars provides pure damage output on top of great bulk. This is not shared by a lot of Loomians, well, a lot of walls. I guess the biggest comparison can be Tyrex and Syrianite. But other than that, Sedimars is one of the only stuff that can do that. Sedimars has been used offensively, well, not offensively, but thanks to its offensive capabilities, it can put Valkyrie, Pyrolyn, to a stop, stuff like that. It can use Thunder Jump to hit stuff like Syrianite and Stratosaur, as well as some other stuff. Sedimars overall is just a pretty great Loomian. I do think it's an A-, not an A tier, just because of, you know, Tyrex is a thing. So Tyrex is pretty much a better Sedimars in my opinion. Not like in the sense where it's automatically you should use this instead of Sedimars, but Sedimars does have its uses. Obsidian and Tundrolin I kind of want to talk about next. Yeah, Tundrolin, Obsidian, here we go. I do think that Tundrolin is worse than Obsidian because Obsidian on paper has better defensive typing for the metagame right now. Tundrolin is less valued just because Tundrolin gets broken by a lot of the wall breakers, or most of the melee wall breakers. Stuff like Kinibo, Meditoad, Tatab are great for destroying Tundrolin. And for Obsidian, well, it can deal with Kinibo, it can deal with Tatab, and I guess it can deal with Meditoad to an extent, but yeah. Tangerine is not really as great as a Swidrigan anymore because Ice type isn't really a good defensive typing in this metagame. So yeah, another great Loomian is Harvest Act. I do think it has its problems and that mostly comes from its ability, but thanks to its defensive typing, it can be used really well. It's one of the premier counters to Totab if you do not want to use Bar Blast. It can check Kanibo pretty well. It can check Kanibo pretty well as well as Sedimars. Um, yeah, it's just really good. I'm blanking on reasons of why it's not in the B plus tier. It can check a lot of good it can check a lot of good wall breakers, stuff like Borak and Smolder. Not Smolder being a wall breaker, but you know. Harvesect also does provide great utility with being immune to Brawler, which is a really strong typing in this metagame. Also, the resistance to Earth, so Earth types isn't as scary as it was before. Driving First is a really great tool because normally stuff that would be able to be set up on Harvesect would be able to get switched out. Stuff like Wintrix and Zeppelin are prime targets for this. So yeah, Harvesect is a great Loomian. I do not think it is as great as Kanibo Metatoad. I'll actually move Kanibo down a bit. I think it's a little bit worse than Valkyrie, but yeah. Alright, that's it so far. I think I'll talk about some easy Loomians. Himber, Akalos, are really bad Loomians now. Well, Akalos is more of a viable V+ Loomian. Brawn Boost is pretty strong. I do see the argument of putting it lower because stuff like, well, it's pretty much walled by any metal type and water type. Stuff like Luminami, Tsukame, Stratosaur, Obsidian, Tangerine are really great answers for this thing. Not to mention it has to deal with Bar Blast, so yeah, I do not think it's as great as it was before, so B+, Akalos. Himber is pretty much a worse Akalos in every way. Less damage, less offensive utility. It does have better defensive utility, but being immune to electric is not all that much. So yeah, I feel like Garlash might be a B+ or B Loomian. I can see, well, Garlash kind of suffers from the same thing from Akalos and Himber, that they're both walled by every single water type. Well, mostly every single water type in the game. Garlash is also prime subjects for Tangerine, Obsidian, Bar Blast, and arguably Harvesect to get switched in on. That's not really great. So yeah, B for Garlash. And I kind of want to talk about the wall breakers of B+, and that's mostly going to be occupied by Shachi, Cosmere Cracked, and Colossotrops, Borak, and I'm missing some more, but I'll talk about them later. Borak is pretty good. Well, not in OU anymore, considering that Tangerine, Obsidian, Harvesect are all really great switch-ins for Borak. So they're rising up in the ranks, so Borak isn't as great as it was before since there are a bunch of stuff to kill it. Totab and Kanibo and arguably Ursul are really common now, so stuff like that can lower Borak's boast, which sucks for it obviously. And obviously the fact that there are better melee wall breakers like Metatoad and Kanibo are being more used than Borak gives it some competition, and obviously pushes it down in the tier more. So that kind of sucks for Borak. So B+, it's still viable, it's great. It can be a really good off-meta casual pick for you. So yeah. Colossotrops is another one of those Loomians that, like Borak, well, I don't know about Colossotrops. It suffers more of its defensive typing because it's so weak to a bunch of these stuff. I mean, ice types, let's look here. Tangerine, Wintrix, those are two ice types that are very common in the meta game. Ancient types, or rather ancient moves, coming from Sidrigon, Joltooth, and where are you? And Zulong. Dark types, or rather dark type move users like Metatoad with Slapdown, to clips with Dark Surge. Yeah, it's not, and I guess Syrianite with Slapdown as well. It's not great. Metal types like Valkyrie, Stratosaur, Tyrex, Syrianite all destroy Colossotrops, or rather threaten Colossotrops. So yeah, Colossotrops is not really that great. I can see it getting better just because of general pivots getting a better in the next few updates, or hopefully they do. But other than that, I really do not think Colossotrops will be getting any higher than B+. If pivots start to rise, then yeah, I can see the argument of Colossotrops being better. Alright, some next Loomians is going to be... Oh wait, I forgot to talk about Shachi and Cosmere Cracked. These guys are pretty good because Barblast, Harvestek, Totab, and C.B.O are all stuff that they can personally do a lot of damage against. I just do not think that they're good enough to be viable, because Syrianite exists, Stratosaur exists, and Steady Mars already checks them pretty well, so that's pretty tough for them. Oxydra and arguably clever Chartiki can do some good stuff and check them as well, so it's not really great in that apartment. So yeah, it's kind of hard for these guys, but mainly the main reason why I'm putting it down in B+ and not A- is because Ferroglyph here is a much better mine type compared to them. Ferroglyph has pretty good coverage because its coverage can hit stuff like if you're running all 4 moves, you're going to be able to hit Tyrex, Syrianite, Totab, Metatoad, Obsidian, not Stratosaur, Valkyrie, and I'm missing a bunch of other walls, but Chartiki, Oxydra, and yeah, and Vanillin as well. You're going to be hitting them super hard with your super effective coverage. So this allows you to be really strong, have a bunch of coverage, and of course your speed tier is great. So you can be your team's sweeper or cleaner, and that's obviously a really great trait to have. So obviously it's a very solid Loomian. I don't think there's any drawbacks from this other than being weak to Shadow Sprint and some other stuff that I'm probably forgetting, but yeah, Ferroglyph is super solid in this metagame. Alright, I'm going to be talking about Vanillin. I think Vanillin is a Loomian I want to talk about. It's kind of B+ for me. I'm probably being too harsh, but when you compare Vanillin to Barblast, it's pretty much better in every single way. I mean, other than range bulk. But yeah, Barblast provides offensive capability, which is being more of a theme of this metagame. If a wall has offensive capability or utility, like general utility, it's a lot more better than some other stuff. Vanillin does provide some utility of being able to use barter as well as being able to poison, but other than that, I guess a lot of the other toxic types does provide poison, so I guess you can't really say that. It does have good bulk, but then again, it is being able to get broken by Wintrix, Zeppelin, Valkyrie, Metatoad as well. It has some big problems, big issues here. Not to mention that it's walled by Set of Mars. Our Harvestek kind of likes to be able to switch in on it. Tyrex is great for switching in on it. So yeah, it's kind of a hard life for it. I do think it's in a worse position than Tundulin, so I'll be putting it down in the B+ range. I'm probably being too harsh, but yeah. Oxydra, I guess it's in the same realm of where Valkyrie is. Yeah, it's in the same realm of that, where a bunch of the metagame can threaten it out. It's not as great as it was before because there's ways of dealing with it now. I'm considering putting it higher, but A- might be the cap where I put it. So yeah, Chartiki here is pretty great because it provides provoke, so it can stop setup sweepers, which is obviously pretty great, or general wall breakers from setting up stuff like Zeppelin, Wintrix, Valkyrie. Predict the switch in on, or rather predict the magnify, the piece of minds. Boom, you wasted their energy, or rather wasted a turn for them. It does provide good utility with provoke, or not provoke, barter. You can potentially barter some shackles or ashes, which is pretty great as well. Overall, its coverage is pretty decent. It's not the best, but it's pretty decent. And its overall versatility of running a melee defensive tank, a range defensive tank, yeah, it's pretty great in this tier, in this metagame. It was always great. So yeah, Chartiki, it's an A. I can see the argument of A minus. So yeah, that's one thing to consider. Snagoob is another good Loomian in the A minus tier. It hits pretty hard. I'm not particularly going to be talking about Buck Up because in my opinion that's pretty inconsistent. But yeah, Snagoob pretty good. It's a pretty good sweeper. It's not the best speed tier because Zulong has a better speed tier. But other than that, Snagoob does provide some good strength. It's really great for any type of team style, most likely bulky stuff. So yeah, Snagoob pretty great. Also provides provoke, barter, poison barbs, stuff like that. So that's also good for Snagoob. Zulong, in my opinion, is probably that's not Zulong. Zulong is probably a way better cleaner than Snagoob. I do think that Zulong has its weaknesses. I mean, Tyrex is in the metagame, which sucks. Sedimars is in the metagame, which also sucks as well. So I do see the argument of like Zulong being a bit less used or a bit less viable than I think it is. I think Zulong is still a good Loomian. There's no doubt about that. Vanillin is still common right now, so it can wall Zulong. It's just Zulong has some good coverage. It hits Oxydra, Wintrix, Zeppelin, and I guess Charti can put a stop to it as well. It hits C.B.O, Valkyrie. Tundralin doesn't want to take a hit from it, as well as Garbantus or the Snagoob. Yeah, it's just pretty strong with its coverage. I do think there are a bunch of ways to stop it, but once Zulong is in the late mid game, it's going to be dealing a lot of damage pretty soon. And not to mention it has Ancient Roar. Alright, I'm going to be a little bit more faster here. So yeah, I'm probably going to contain a little bit less detailed explanations. So yeah. Dorogo, B minus. Umbrat might be in a C+. Florant, Wiki, C. They're not really great anymore, and I guess I can put Sumo-Bito in B minus. The reason why Sumo-Bito is in B minus because Strat pretty much walls this thing. Harvesect, Obsidian, Sedimars can put a decent stop to it. Tangerlin again being a really good stop for it as well, and air types in general being common like Snagoob, Wintrix, and Zeppelin. They're pretty common air types that will destroy Sumo-Bito. Tatab is generally seen as a better brawler type, and of course Sumo-Bito not having the best damage output from just raw damage is not really the greatest because other wall breakers like C.B.O, Meditoad, and arguably Colossotraps and Borak have more immediate damage power than Sumo-Bito. So Sumo-Bito B minus. I can see the argument of B. So yeah, Dorogo doesn't really provide anything much other than Baffle and Egg Glob. But then again, Dorogo is pretty much a worse suicide lead than Gobidemic, and Baffle is not too great on a fast Loomian. A definition of a great Baffle user is your snack. If I can find it, that would be great. Here we go. B plus along with Colossotraps. There is the argument of it being a bit worse. I can see that argument very well because Obsidian kind of dumpsters on it, as well as Tangerlin, Oxydra, Harvesect. They do dumpster on this thing pretty well. And since your snack's probably not going to be dealing a lot of damage, considering it's mostly going to be defensive, those super effective hits won't be dealing as much damage as it would be doing. So yeah. Your snack B+, it's still a great Loomian for enabling other wall breakers from doing damage. Wobbleisk is pretty great because Barb's driving force is one of the best things it can do. It can driving force the barb removers out, which is great. Smolder is a B+ Loomian. I do see the argument of giving it a B tier because of the many air types in the game. Barblast walling it free is like, it's pretty hard for it. Yeah, Tundralin is a big stop for it, as well as Obsidian and Harvesect. Yeah, it's a pretty tough life for Smolder. So yeah, I really do not think it's anything above A minus. So yeah, Snogre is pretty great. Provoke Peace of Mind is obviously a pretty great tool for anything, but I do think it's a worse Provoke Peace of Mind user than Zeppelin and Wintrix. Not to mention it doesn't have anything for coverage against light types or ancient types, so it's gonna struggle there. So yeah. Vesperatu B plus, most likely it's most likely because it gets put to a stop from Tundralin, Oxydra, Obsidian. Yeah, it's not really that great anymore. And not to mention that Barblast, Tyrex, Syrianite all check at this thing pretty well. It doesn't really provide as much utility as before because, you know, Ticlips can absorb all of them. So that's pretty great. Eliguana B plus. It's more of the better B plus Loomians. It can provide some good utility of being able to take out the air types, and honestly, that's a pretty good trait. You know what? I'll give it a generous A minus, but bottom A minus. It does struggle with Tyrex and Sedimars. Yeah, it's pretty bad. And if Ferroglyph isn't running Boulder Blast, Iliguana will be able to wall it, so that's pretty good. And also, it also kind of puts to a stop one of the premier walls of the metagame, Stratosaur. Stratosaur provides a lot of utility. One set can be a Tase and I forgot the other move it gets, but it can be a Tase and Gust Stratosaur, which is pretty great. Tase the Loomian, so 50% of the time they won't be doing anything. Gust the hazards, and as of right now, Stratosaur with Gust is arguably pretty great because, well, it's only great for Gabademic because Gabademic can't provoke a Gust right now, so that's pretty great, although we'll be changing in the next update. Magnify Stratosaur, in all honesty, is probably one of the best things for Stratosaur right now, considering that it can set up on those wall breakers that don't want to get in on it. So overall, that's pretty good on Stratosaur's part. Krakaloa is like a B minus. It's pretty it is kind of bulky on both sides, but that bulk doesn't mean nothing if you're doing nothing to the opponents. Great Krakaloa. Lumelo is probably a good Loomian. I just don't see it as a better barb setter compared to Syrianite, Wobbleisk, Gabademic, and some other stuff. So, and that's not going to be too great for Lumelo. It's defensive typing. I'm pretty sure it's water, but there are better defensive water types like Tsukame and Luminami, which I'll be mentioning later. So yeah, Blowtox is a B. I can see it going down in B minus, but Blowtox still has the same stuff as it has before. It's just that Barblast is a way better Loomian. Stuff like Vanillin, Gabademic, not Stratosaur, Snagoob are being more used toxic types than it. Smolder is generally seen as a more better toxic type because it can run Brawn Boost and it can stall out a bit more better than Blowtox. So yeah, Blowtox doesn't really have much going for it anymore. Ventation B minus because it doesn't really have recovery. It's pretty much gets set up on by any melee attacker in the game. No, not any melee attacker, any metal type attacker in the game. Generally, this doesn't really do well against other stuff that resists bug, and water type doesn't really do that much because it's not really that strong in that department. So yeah, sorry Ventation, you're my friend's favorite Loomian, but nah, I'm sorry. Haganash is a better Krakaloa in my opinion. Well, it can't be bulky as Krakaloa, and it can't be as strong as Chartiki. Not Chartiki, as Syrianite, and I guess Ikuzune and Raptodon. But it is pretty great because it does provide some offensive capabilities with Baneful Bash, Mega Chomp, or Fiery Fondant. It can provide some good barb removal with Burn Up, so yeah. It's viable but not too great. I think that's the perfect tier to put it in. Same goes with Wrestling. Actually, I might put Wrestling up here. Wrestling's, in all honesty, probably pretty bad now. Water types wall this thing to an oblivion, as well as any remotely bulky spirit type like Revenine, Harvesect. Gets dumpstered on by stuff like Oxydra, and air types like Snagoob, Wintrix, Zeppelin, and Stratosaur are all prime air types for it to be getting switched on. And of course, Nemare being able to flat out wall it. It's not really that great anymore. Nemare is also a pretty good Loomian. I do think it has some issues, like mainly being walled by Stratosaur, being put to a stop by Setimars. But overall, it does have some good qualities. It's one of the premier stops for Obsidian if it's not running Mega Chomp, as well as Harvesect, so that's good. It can do decently well against stuff like Syrianite and Tyrex, so that's great. It's just that its air type stab isn't as great as it should be. It should be getting Jetstream in my opinion, but Airblade isn't the strongest, so obviously it's going to be doing worse in that department. This leaves stuff like Wintrix be able to switch in a bit better, and Meditoad being flat out one of the best checks for it offensively. So yeah, that sucks. Mojo, I think Mojo is a pretty great Loomian. Boom Bash Deep Freeze is really great because you can hit almost any water type super effectively. That's great. You can hit almost all of the metal types aside from, I think, Stratosaur super effectively, so that's obviously pretty great for it. I can see the main argument of why it's not as great, although it's pretty great in my opinion. It can get put to a stop by some mine types, or rather Vanillin, which it's down here, and I guess Iliguana. So yeah, Mojo is pretty great. I can only see, as of right now, stuff like Iliguana and Vanillin being able to wall it. Other than that, it does provide some good coverage for the metagame. It's just then again, it's not as... if it wastes a shell or chocolate bar, it's not going to be dealing a lot of damage considering it's slow than a bunch of other stuff, and that obviously ice type defensive typing is not the best to have. So yeah, Mojo A-. I might consider putting it up more, but yeah, A- above Snagoob and below Iliguana, in my opinion. Ikuzune, Raptodon, they're pretty great fire type wall breakers if you're ignoring the fact that Valkyrie exists, and as well as Zeppelin and Wintrix. Please don't compare, please. Ikuzune is still a worse Valkyrie in every single way, so it kind of sucks for it. Yeah, Ikuzune does provide some great coverage for the metagame, being able to do damage, being able to hit Tyrex, Barblast, Stratosaur. I think it hits Syrianite super effectively, as well as Oxydra, Harvesect. Yeah, it's pretty great. However, Vanillin, Setimars are being more used now, so that's not great for it right now. I'm probably missing some other stuff, but overall, I think Ikuzune's worst trait is that it's one of the frailer wall breakers, which means that you have to provide some support for Ikuzune to get switched in, like Baffle or Flash and users, which are mainly not being used as much anymore because the Eclipse is a thing, and defensive Lumians are generally being more used now. So yeah, it doesn't have that much in there, and you can't revenge kill either because this thing's speed is very bad. And I also like the fact that if you try to run smart, Valkyrie out damage you. If you run nimble, Valkyrie still out damages you. So that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Oh my god. Okay. Raptodon is, in my opinion, a little bit better than Ikuzune, but other than Firebreath, almost all of its other moves don't hit as hard as it before. It still struggles with the same problem as Ikuzune. It doesn't have good bulk, so yeah, I don't think it's anything near A-. So yeah, I'm sorry. Tsukame is one of those other good B plus tier Loomians. I do think it's a bit worse than the walls in the metagame right now, specifically Obsidian, Harvesect, Tundrulin, and Barblast. Although it does provide some good utility with quick recovery, so I have to give it that. Honestly, Body Crash is pretty good as well, and my unclear bias with me getting swept by a Makoro in Speeder's tournament. Don't ask why. It's in the round 3, like right before semis, and please don't ask. Please don't ask. Okay, Pyrolyn. Pyrolyn, in all honesty, is probably a good wall breaker. It does break, well, it does break stuff like Chartiki, Stratosaur with Fanning Flame, Tyrex to an extent, Syrianite as well, being able to break Tundrulin too. And I guess Iliguana too. Yeah, it's pretty great, and I guess it breaks Kawashinu too. It breaks Kawashinu too. Yeah, it's pretty great. Peace of Mind is obviously great for this thing. I said in my Pyrolyn video, and I do not think I said in my Pyrolyn video that Peace of Mind isn't worth running, but in my opinion, it definitely is. Definitely is worth running because that's how you kill stuff. So yeah, Pyrolyn pretty great. I can consider seeing in an A tier, but it's definitely an A minus. In at the least, definitely better than Valkyrie. Sorry, Valkyrie. So yeah, Kawashinu, honestly, it's used to be seen as a good Loomian because good overall bulk. It's kind of like Krakaloa here, but it does have more offensive utility with its coverage, so yeah, it has that, and also teardown. So yeah, I think the hype has died down for Kawashinu, and it's a lot worse than what people actually think it is. It pretty much gets set up on any remotely good wall breaker. Gets hit by C.B.O, gets hit by Metatoad. These guys set up on it. Valkyrie pretty much sets up on it, which kind of sucks as well. It being prime switch-ins for Harvesect, Obsidian, and Sedimars, that's not great for it. Namari sets up on it as well. Kawashinu's not that great anymore. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, Wonderland is also pretty great. Dyborg and Avatros are great. I can see Avatros being in B, but whatever. Avatros still has some scary coverage, although it's pretty much walled to an Oblivion by Tyrex and Obsidian, as well as as well as Tundrulin. So yeah, Avatros is okay. I can see the argument of B+, but Avatros, it's still good. Its coverage is kind of good. And yeah, mostly the main thing of what Avatros is mostly weak to is any remotely strong attacker, because its defenses are trash. Alright, Dyborg, and let's see. So Dyborg is pretty great because tank is still good, being able to absorb poison barbs. Its mixed defenses and its mixed attacks actually does help it a lot, because you can destroy Vanillin with heavy bash or whatever, steel crusher. I'm pretty sure you can do some funky stuff with it. I honestly do not know its true potential. It definitely is a good Loomian to use in the B+, probably one of the harder Loomians to use. So yeah, pretty good for Dyborg. Wonderland is also good because its speed is not the best, but it's pretty high. Its melee attack is what it's probably its best thing going for it, because it hits harder than Vesp. And yeah, also it's a spear type, not walled by Eclipse. Let's go. And its coverage is as dangerous as Eclipse's. Yep, it has the light and dark and neutral coverage as well. So that's great for Wonderland. I can see it putting it down a bit more, but yeah. Buzzlin, in all honesty, is probably a B or B minus. It sucks. I mean, there is no getting around that. It's pretty much walled by Tyrex and Stratosaur. And before you say it, Isaac Newbie, no, Sweet Aroma Buzzlin isn't good. Please stop saying that. It's prime switch-ins for air types like Stratosaur, Zeppelin, Wintrix, and Snagoob. Tundrulin are also Tundralin's also a good Loomian for Buzzlin to switch in on. So yeah, Buzzlin not really great anymore in the metagame. So yeah, it's B. I can see it going up in B plus just because of its ability, Vigorous. But other than that, yeah. Mewtwo B. It has good damage. That's about it. Magnify Peace of Mind, kind of good, but I really do not know where to put this thing. I guess I'll put it B plus to make it safe. Or rather, no, I'm putting in B. Because Trumbull is pretty much a better evolution for it. So yeah, Trumbull has Battle Horn, which pretty great until you let the opponent get status and you clear their status, but that doesn't really happen too much. Its coverage is pretty great. I'm pretty sure it has Driving Force, Mega Chomp, Raging Tackle, and Earthquake. So obviously that's pretty great coverage. Anything with Earth and Dark is pretty good coverage on its own. Yeah. I just do not know if if this should be used because, well, Tundralin, well, mainly Harvestect is the best thing for this thing, as well as Stratosaur and Obsidian. So I do not know if it's that great. It's generally a B plus. So yeah. Protogun is another good B plus Lumen, as well as I think I'll put Cosmere Unleashed in the same tier. Protogun generally has some problems. It's walled by Sedimars. It's put to a stop by Metatoad temporarily. Walled by Rex. Unless it's not smart, Iguana can do some funky stuff against it. Vanillin is also here. So I guess Protogun, you need Deja Vu on it, which kind of limits its moveset to 3 range attacking moves or 2 range attacks, and Steel Crusher, which in all honesty is probably not great. But yeah, Protogun not as great as anymore because most of the stuff in OU are built around so that their range defense is higher than their melee defense, and that's not good for Protogun, especially when Steel Crusher is like its only good melee attacking move, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, Protogun, it would be better if the meta was, if it got more better coverage, specifically in its melee attack. I can see it then getting a bit of a rise, but other than that, no, it's not that great anymore. Servalin is B. It's a worse Trumbull and a worse Borak. I'm not gonna go in details because it is. Wakalaka B. Coverage is insane unless you are using it on a Bane of Haste team. There's like no reason to use Wakalaka. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. So yeah, B tier Wakalaka. I'm sorry. Festifer is like on the same level as Himber, but a little bit lower, so I kind of want to put it down here. Its defensive typing is not as great as before because Kartiki hits it. Krakaloa, not Krakaloa, that's Kanibo. Kanibo, Syrianite, Tyrex, Stratosaur, Valkyrie, all hit it super effectively, as well as Obsidian being a prime stop to it, and Tundralin, which is pretty good for the metagame, which kind of sucks for Festifer. So yeah, not to mention I think this stuff down here does pretty well against it as well because of its bad defensive typing, so that sucks for it. Cosmere Encased is bad because it doesn't have much offensive utility. It's pretty much only good for bulk, and bulk, it's like a worse Krakaloa in a sense where it's only good for walling stuff and not doing any damage back, and it has no utility outside of Hypnotize, so yeah, not great. What did I just put up here? I forgot. Yeah, I am okay. Lyricat is pretty good because Magnify obviously is pretty great. Unlike Mewtwo, it doesn't need to wall break because it's obviously designed as a sweeper. It's obviously designed as a cleaner sweeper. Its fast speed is pretty great for it. Not to mention that its range attack is okay. It's not like the best because you generally need setup to do some stuff. Volcanic Ash Barter might be pretty great as well. You can get that sweet boost from Headache Split. I think it's a bug, but whatever. So yeah. Obviously, Lurkat's B+. I can see the argument of B, but yeah. Ragoon is pretty much good for taking items, that's it. It's walled by Eclipse, by Obsidian, Harvestek, Tongilin. Need I say more? Yeah, it's generally good for taking items, which honestly is pretty great, but yeah. Pyramide, I honestly do not know why I'm including in this list. It's bad. It's worse than these guys. Like, there's nothing to use Pyramide except Bane of Haste. So yeah. Cinemoth is another bad Loomian, mainly because of the many air types in the game that can switch in on it, deal some damage to it. Tundrelin is generally pretty good against it. Mars, Tyrex, and Stratosaur are generally good stuff for it as well. Meditoad can switch in on it. I wouldn't suggest it, but it's good for it. Nemare is pretty great for it as well. Yeah, it's not really great for it. And a +2 Magnify, fun fact, isn't the hardest hitting thing in the game. So yeah, sucks for it. Banfino is B+. Like, I think the only viable set you can use for Banfino is a bulky speed attacking Subseed user. And as you can take a look at the metagame, Chartiki and Totab are the only common plant types. So Banfino can be a fun troll Loomian. I mean, other than Subseed, it does nothing else. So yeah, good for Banfino. Arapaigo, in all honesty, is probably a B at the very least, but B+ because of what it can provide, and its coverage is honestly one of the best coverages in the game. But thanks to its low range attack, thank you, Jamie. It's not going to be dealing as much as it can before. Quick recovery is honestly good, and those meme defensive Arapaigo sets are honestly pretty cool and funky. So yeah, I can see the B argument, but putting up in B+, it can definitely do some funky stuff. It's generally a good Loomian if you're fighting against casuals because its coverage is that good for it. So yeah, B+ Arapaigo. Yeah, so I forgot what is its name. It's like Terraclaw. Yeah, Terraclaw, pretty bad. It's pretty much really bad because it's weak to barbs, weak to any kind of status and hazards actually, and it has no recovery. Not peace of mind. Parasitize is its only form of recovery, and even then, um, bug being our only form of recovery is not the best thing in the game. So yeah, it's kind of bad now, not to mention the plentiful of air types and ice types, or rather plentiful of air types and metal types, which kind of dumpster on it as well. So yeah, it sucks. And the offensive mine types as well in the game, pretty bad for it. So yeah, not really that great anymore. Terrafly, I do think it's better than Terraclaw, but not that much better. Ambush is the only thing going for it, but even then, it's still walled by Obsidian, Harvesect. If it doesn't use its Wing Slap. So yeah, it's walled by Harvesect without Wing Slap. Tyrex, Stratosaur, generally good switch-ins for it, as well as the air types being again very common, which kind of is a common theme for the bug types. Tundrelin is a pretty good stop for it as well. So yeah, Terrafly B, not the best thing in the game. Gastroke C+. No, it's a B-. Like, I guess the mine coverage of Stratagem does help it out a bit, but then again, metal types. Yeah, and its defensive typing being one of the worst in the game because you're weak to so much common stuff, and it's not even funny of how weak to it. So yeah, Garbantus, it's a solid B tier. I can see the B+ or the B- argument. So yeah, it's pretty great. The only thing that's stopping it are the ice types and the air types. Like I said, it's a common theme against many bug types. So yeah, it's not really as seen as a good Loomian anymore. And of course, Harvesect being one of the only good defensive bug types in the game, obviously it's a good, it's not that great compared to Harvestic as of right now. Spreezy, again, same thing with the bug types. Honestly, it's a bit better because of what it can do. Sap plant pestilence. Yeah, it's very annoying. Other than that, I do not think it's not much worth using. So yeah, I can't believe um I've avoided talking about Luminami for this while. So yeah, Luminami is a good Loomian still. It still provides some good power napper capabilities, but being weak to barbs still sucks for it. It's pretty bad now. Well, not pretty bad in that sense, but power napper can't. Well, barbs cancels out its power napper, so you're forced to run rejuvenate, or unless you're so perfect at getting rid of barbs. So yeah, Luminami kind of falling off at that point. It's still a pretty good Loomian in overall. It's still a good pivot. It still enables a bunch of the wall breakers to deal some damage, and overall it's a good beginner Loomian. And of course, Awakening Luminami did appear in each tournament. I do not know how, but Awakening Luminami kind of cool. So yeah, A minus Luminami. I can see it going above like some of these other stuff. I just don't think it's better than Valkyrie. It's definitely better than Zulong. So yeah. Volcaloa, in all honesty, is probably really great. It's walled by Strat in this OU metagame. I don't think there's anything that it can be able to wall, so that can be able to stop Volcaloa. It's just that Volcaloa gets hit by super effective stuff coming from Oxydra, Oxydra, Zeppelin, and Wintrix, Tongulin. No, not Tongulin. What the hell? Tyrex, Syrianite, not Syrianite. Yeah, Tyrex, Blast. I'm pretty sure. Seti Mars. Yeah, it's not a fun time for Volcaloa, but since it's a sweeper and a cleaner and a revenge killer, I guess that doesn't really matter for it. I'm kind of in the range of putting it B plus because I do not know where I would rank it among these guys. Like if it's lower, if it's higher. So I think I'll put it in A minus. Revenine, I do think it's a good Loomian. Honestly, it might not be the best right now because obviously Seti Mars is getting more common. Oxydra still a great Loomian to use against Revenine. Clever Syrianites can generally put it to a stop, so that's a good thing. Yeah, its coverage is still great, and it's one of the best revenge killers in the game, other than Boonery. So yeah, I think Revenine is good. I do not think it's as great as it was before, but yeah, Revenine pretty good. LFH, I kind of want to put in a B plus because, well, LFH with malware, admittedly, it's pretty great. People keep saying that Harvesect can't do anything to LFH, but guys, Earthquake is a non-contact move that hits this thing super effectively. Yeah, yep. Okay. It does provide some good utility with the likes of switching it onto Tyrex, switching it onto a Syrianite, switching it on Metatoad generally, not Metatoad, Stratosaur, Harvesect, even though Earthquake is a thing. Yeah, and as well as like resilience users like Oxydra and Tongulin, and it can switch in on the many air types of the game. So yeah, I think it's pretty great. Do I think it's as good as it? Is it like an A minus? I do not think so. You can debate me in the comment sections too. Alright, Malmerk, B plus. Now, it normally would be higher because of driving force. I just do not know if it's as great as the A minus tier Loomians. The main thing on why I'm trying to put down a little bit more is because of Blast existing, Gabademic, and Snagoob existing here. So yeah, it's not going to be having a fun time against those. Generally, Tatab is a much used plant type, and honestly, having more than one plant type on a team is pretty bad on its own. And the way I see it, Malmark's most used niche is getting rid of Valkyrie, and that's pretty much the only niche I see in Malmark as of right now. I don't think it's as great as the other wall breakers, or not the other wall breakers, the other walls, because the only thing it has over like something like Tyrex, Syrianite, Stratosaurus is its driving force. But then again, plant is still a bad defensive typing. Snagoob, Gobidemic, Harvesect, Oxydra, Megachamp. Yeah, Deep Freeze from a Mojo. Yeah, it's generally not that great of a typing anyways. It's definitely a lot more better than what people think it is. So yeah, B plus this thing. Nevermare is another B plus tier Loomian. I do not think it is as great as it is, as people give it credit for, because in reality, in reality, razor sharp critting, it's not dealing as much damage to some other stuff because its defensive typing, or rather its offensive base stat, isn't the best. So in my opinion, it's not as great as people think it is, because even with crits, it's not hitting as hard as it should be. Good job, Jamie. You did well balancing Nevermare. But yeah, B plus Nevermare. And we're getting to our last 5, 10, nope, 11 Loomians. So I better make this fast. Luxor is a B minus. Well, not B minus. It's like 2 tiers above Umbrat. Yeah, Luxor isn't walled by every light type in the game now. Firebreath is generally pretty great. Yeah, it's generally great. However, I think Strat still walls it. City Mars, still walls it. Vanillin, Maomerc still walls it. Yeah, it's not really as great as it was. Generally, any sort of ranged bulky stuff can do some decent chunks to Luxor. In all honesty, I'm probably trying to think of ways that I can put it in B plus, but yeah, it's not too great. It's B. Okay, Samurai is pretty great. Its coverage of the electric, water, metal, and I think it has Mega Chomp or Chomp. I'm not sure. Its coverage is generally pretty great. It does hit this super effective, 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 this as well super effective, this super effective, this super effective. So yeah, Samurai, I kind of want to put it above Volcala because its coverage is kind of a little bit better in my opinion. But I do not know. I think Samurai is definitely a good Loomian. It's actually rising in OU currently, so that's the thing to consider. But generally, I definitely think that Samurai is a bit. It's very good. I'm probably overplaying this thing, but it's generally good. Infernix is kind of like Luminami's step cousin in where it does the same thing but worse. Phoenix Flame is pretty good because you don't need to run Dust on this, and you do need to run Dust on Luminami, but the thing here is Infernix doesn't have much going for it other than Power Napper. I mean, fire types wise, Syrianite and Chartiki are generally seen as better stuff defensively, and Ikuzune, Raptodon, and Pyrolyn are generally seen better fire types offensively. So yeah, Infernix kind of mid, honestly. Joltooth is another good Loomian. I do think it's a bit worse than what people give it credit for, because Mars, very robust Mars, puts a stop to it. Tundulin, Tyrex, Obsidian, generally, it can switch in on. I did the calcs. A very robust heavy armor can live 3 hits, or rather, it's going to survive an ambush hit from a Joltooth unless it's not shell. If it's shell, then it dies, but without a shell, ambush is not going to be killing Oxydra, and then Oxydra here doing the funny beast, not beast lumber, but being able to heal off the damage. Well, not beast lumber, but being able to hit it back super effectively, and then Joltooth dies. I'm not sure how long ago that calc was, but Oxydra is still a decent check to it. It just needs some chip on Joltooth, and generally getting chip on Joltooth isn't that big of a problem. So yeah, Guardian, honestly, its coverage is pretty great, but then again, walled by Chartiki, generally put to a stop by stuff like Tyrex and City Mars. Generally, I'm not sure. Its coverage is still pretty great. I do not know where to put this thing because, well, I haven't really tested much with it. You can do some funny clutch accelerate stuff, which in all honesty is probably not my type of jam. But yeah, Guardian can be a decent late game sweeper with clutch, Rachel plushie, and accelerate. You can do that. It's pretty fun. Isaac Newbie did one, and honestly I liked this video. It does hit a bunch of stuff super effectively. I'm just not sure on the game plan before it sweeps, because most likely you're gonna get hit super effectively first, and then like you're not gonna be dealing as much damage as it was before. And generally, it doesn't offer much other than sweeping. More of the wall breakers here are more consistent than guard drones, so yeah, it's not really as great. Boonery, I'm not sure where to put it. Honestly, I'm kind of debating on putting it here. But Boonery is UU, so that might be a consideration. But I guess Boonery is still good. It's one of the better range revenge killers. It's probably better than Revenine. But honestly, I'm not sure where to put Boonery because it can copy stuff, which is automatically pretty great. It can be bulkier than most of the offensive Loomians it copies, so that's a good thing with its HP TPs. But other than that, I'm not really sure where to put it, so I think I'll put it A- because of what it can do. Hunter is a good Loomian. I still think, well, Hunter's offensive capabilities is not as strong as it was before. There are better answers to not to this now. Resilience stuff like Oxydra, Tundralin are good stops to it. Oxydra can be a general good stop to it. Tyrex and Barblast, Syrianite are general good stops to it as well. Yeah, I just do not know where to put this thing. It still does hit a lot of stuff super effectively, like mainly the air types of the med game. Looking at you, Stratosaur, can hit Cinemar super effectively as well as Metatoad super effectively. So yeah, it can deal some damage. Hits this super effectively, this, and this super effectively, as well as this. So yeah, it is pretty great. I'm not sure, to be honest. So yeah, I'll be putting it in the A tier. Icicle, honestly, it's pretty much good for its utility, and other than that, it doesn't really share anything else. So yeah, still a B tier. I don't think it's much better than the B plus tier, but so I'll put it in a B tier. Dusket, honestly, is probably the worst roamer, but not by a long shot. I mean, Ikuzune is a prime Loomian to overtake in the next few updates, or rather the next few OU weeks. So Dusket's still pretty good. Its coverage is good. The only problem is it doesn't have a lot of damage output. Kind of similar to Nevermare, but of course Dusket doesn't have the critting chances. So overall, Dusket kind of mid. It's kind of okay, but not like in the very actual sense of it being great. So yeah, Deladrix is another good Loomian. Its coverage is really great, but I think the meta is adapting to it more, in a sense, where a bunch of these stuff are things that it can hit super effectively, but they do live the hit, and then they do hit it hard pretty back. Most scenarios turn up in very super effective hits, But since Vanillin being pretty great, being able to wall Deladrix and being one of the most common things right now, and Kawashinu falling down as well as Smolder, I do see the potential of Deladrix being a lot more better. So I'll put it up here with Mojo and Revenine. So yeah, a bit better than Revenine, to be honest. And Munchwheel, for what it can do, its coverage is pretty great. They are the elemental chomps, so that's pretty great. Bulk up, obviously one of the best things going for it, and rev up as well, so you're doing really great in that department. So yeah, it has some decent damage output. I just don't think it's worth using over the other stuff that has more consistency. So yeah, and I guess that's the end of the tier list video. Like the video if you enjoy this tier list, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. I make really good guides that you should go check out, mainly on the how to use encounter side of different Loomians, so check that out. I join my Discord. I made a new one, so you should join that. Other than that, this is Cotton Stoops, and I hope you have a good day, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and that's the end of the video.